"What did you do?" she cried, rushing to her husband's side. "He tried to hurt me, Mama," Rana sobbed, her hands trembling. Rana had suffered for the most part of her life. She had known nothing but struggle since she was born into the family of Papa and Mama Immerse. They lived in a small hut in the village and could barely feed themselves. Her mother owned a small farm where she farmed only scent leaves, and her father was useless to the family. He spent his days drinking and squandering what little they had. By the time Rana was 13, she had already endured more hardship than most people experienced in a lifetime. "Mama, why do we always have so little to eat?" Rana asked one evening as they shared a meager meal. Mama Immerse sighed deeply, her tired eyes reflecting the weight of their daily struggles. "Life is hard, my dear. But we must be grateful for what we have." Rana often wished her parents had worked hard enough to afford a better lifestyle, but she vowed to change the narrative even at her young age. Her father was a drunk and often laid his hands on his already fragile and weak wife, who was the sole provider. Despite the abuse, Mama Immerse loved him regardless. She would beg him and apologize after he had beaten her up for something that was obviously his fault. Papa Immerse barely looked Rana's way or acknowledged her, seeing as he never wanted a female child but a male in the first place. This neglect only fueled her determination to rise above her circumstances. As Rana approached her 16th birthday, her body began to form into that of a young woman, and she became increasingly aware of her father's unwanted attention. He began to talk to her more frequently and give her small gifts, his behavior shifting from neglect to an uncomfortable interest. Sensing something was wrong, Rana started to avoid him, which only fueled his hatred. One sweltering afternoon, while Mama Immerse was at the farm, Rana decided to take a nap on the side of their hut. She was startled awake by a light tap on her shoulder. Opening her eyes, she saw her father's looming figure. "Rana, don't scream," he whispered, his breath reeking of alcohol. Fear surged through her as he held her down, his hands tightening around her neck, attempting to kill her. She was shocked and scared to death, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. Instinctively, she grabbed an iron rod beside the bed and struck him on the head with all her might. Papa Immerse screamed in pain, his voice echoing through the hut. Mama Immerse, hearing the commotion, ran into the house to see what had happened. "What did you do?" she cried, rushing to her husband's side. "He tried to hurt me, Mama," Rana sobbed, her hands trembling. "I didn't know what else to do." Papa Immerse, clutching his bleeding head, pointed at Rana. "She tried to kill me. I was only trying to warn her about something, and she attacked me." Mama Immerse turned to Rana, her face pale with disbelief and anger. "Rana, leave this house. You are bringing nothing but chaos to our family." Rana's heart shattered as she packed her few belongings, tears streaming down her face. She looked back one last time, seeing the disappointment in her mother's eyes. With a heavy heart, she stepped into the unknown, determined to find a better life. Rana wandered into the woods, the weight of her situation pressing down on her. She found a large tree and sat beneath it, trying to process all that had happened. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of fear, anger, and sadness. "Where will I go?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible in the stillness of the forest. As night fell, she knew she had to find shelter. She remembered stories of the city her mother had told her when she was a child. A place of opportunities and new beginnings. It was a long shot, but it was her only hope. Determined, Rana set off towards the city, her heart heavy but her resolve unbroken. She walked for days, surviving on wild fruits and the kindness of strangers. Each step was a step away from her painful past and towards an uncertain future. After days of walking, Rana finally reached the outskirts of the city. The towering buildings and bustling streets were overwhelming, but she knew she had to stay strong. She wandered through the streets, looking for a place to rest and gather her thoughts. Fate led her to a small bakery owned by an elderly woman named Mama Grace. Seeing the exhausted girl, Mama Grace offered her a meal and a place to stay. "What's your name, child?" Mama Grace asked, her voice gentle. "Rana," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Grace smiled warmly. "Well, Rana, you're safe here. Rest and regain your strength." Rana felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over her. She had been running on pure adrenaline and fear for so long that the simple act of kindness from Mama Grace brought her to tears. She accepted the food and ate quietly, savoring every bite. "Thank you, Mama Grace," Rana said once she had finished her meal. "I don't know how to repay you." Mama Grace waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense, child. You don't need to repay me. Just get some rest for now. We can talk more in the morning." Rana slept soundly for the first time in days, nestled in the warmth and safety of Mama Grace's home. The next morning, she awoke to the smell of freshly baked bread. She joined Mama Grace in the kitchen, eager to help in any way she could. "You have a talent for baking," Mama Grace remarked as they worked side by side. "Where did you learn?" "I didn't," Rana replied, a small smile on her face. "I just watched my mother cook. She taught me everything I know." Mama Grace looked at her thoughtfully. "You have a good heart, Rana. I can see it in your eyes. But I also see pain. If you feel comfortable, would you share your story with me?" Rana hesitated for a moment, but then she felt a wave of trust and openness. She took a deep breath and began to tell Mama Grace everything. "I was born into a family that struggled to survive," Rana began. "My mother, Mama Immerse, worked tirelessly on a small farm growing scent leaves. She was the sole provider for our family. My father, Papa Immerse, was a drunk who did nothing but bring us misery. He would beat my mother, and she would always beg for his forgiveness after. He never wanted me because I was a girl, he wanted a boy." Mama Grace listened intently, her eyes filled with compassion. She didn't interrupt, allowing Rana to continue at her own pace. "When I turned 16, my father's behavior towards me changed. He started giving me gifts and trying to get close to me, but it made me uncomfortable. I avoided him as much as I could, which only made him angrier. One day, while my mother was at the farm, he tried to kill me. He held me down by my neck, and I thought I was going to die." Rana's voice trembled as she relived the terrifying moment. "I grabbed an iron rod and hit him on the head. He screamed so loudly that my mother came running back. He told her that I had tried to kill him, and she believed him. She told me to leave and never return." Mama Grace reached out and took Rana's hand, giving it a comforting squeeze. "You did what you had to do to survive, Rana. No one should have to endure what you went through." Rana nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I ran away into the woods and sat down by a tree, trying to process everything. I decided to go back and explain to my mother, but when I got home, she was waiting outside with my bags. She said I was bringing chaos to the family and that I had to leave." Mama Grace's eyes filled with tears as she listened to Rana's heartbreaking story. "I'm so sorry, my dear. You've been through so much. But you're safe now, and you have a future ahead of you." Rana wiped her tears and looked at Mama Grace with gratitude. "Thank you, Mama Grace. You've given me hope when I had none. Mama Grace smiled warmly. You are a strong young woman, Rana. And I believe in you. Let's start by getting you settled here. You can stay with me and help out in the bakery. We'll figure out the rest together. Rana felt a surge of hope and determination. She knew she had found a place where she was valued and cared for. She was ready to start a new chapter in her life, with Mama Grace by her side. As the days passed, Rana settled into her new routine at the bakery. She learned quickly and soon became an indispensable part of the team. Mama Grace treated her like family, providing not only shelter but also the emotional support she so desperately needed. One evening, as they sat together after closing the bakery, Mama Grace brought up the topic of education. Rana, have you ever thought about going to school? Rana's eyes lit up at the suggestion. I would love to, Mama Grace, but I don't have the means to pay for it. Mama Grace smiled reassuringly. Leave that to me. We'll find a way. You have a bright mind, and you deserve an education. Rana felt a warmth in her heart. For the first time in a long while, she felt that her dreams were within reach. She knew that with Mama Grace's support, she could achieve anything she set her mind to. With Mama Grace's help, Rana enrolled in a local school. She was older than most of her classmates, but her determination set her apart. She excelled in her studies, finding solace and purpose in learning. Rana quickly became a favorite among her teachers, her thirst for knowledge evident in everything she did. She studied hard, knowing that education was her ticket to a better life. Mama Grace, thank you for believing in me, Rana said one evening as they sat together. Mama Grace smiled warmly. You have always had the potential, Rana. Sometimes all we need is someone to believe in us. Rana's journey was far from over, but with Mama Grace by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She knew that her past would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her. With each passing day, she moved closer to the future she had always dreamed of. As the days turned into months, Rana's confidence grew. She excelled in her studies and found herself becoming more involved in school activities. Her teachers praised her hard work and dedication, and her classmates admired her resilience. One day, during a break between classes, her classmate Tommy approached her. Rana, what motivates you so much? Tommy asked curiously. Rana smiled, her eyes reflecting a deep resolve. I want to change my story, Tommy. I want to prove that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go. Tommy nodded, inspired by Rana's words. You really are something special, Rana. I believe you'll achieve great things. Rana's heart swelled with pride. She knew that her journey was just beginning, and with each step she took, she was moving closer to her dreams. She was determined to make the most of the opportunities she had been given and to create a better future for herself. As she continued to excel in her studies, Rana couldn't help but think about her mother. She wondered how Mama Immerse was doing and whether she ever thought about her. Despite the pain of their parting, Rana couldn't bring herself to hate her mother. She knew that Mama Immerse had done what she thought was best, even if it had hurt her deeply. One evening, as she was helping Mama Grace in the bakery, Rana decided to share her thoughts. Mama Grace, do you think my mother ever thinks about me? Mama Grace looked at her with compassion. I'm sure she does, Rana. A mother's love is a powerful thing, even if it's sometimes misguided. Rana nodded, feeling a mixture of emotions. I hope she's okay. I want to go back and see her someday, but I'm not sure if she would want to see me. Mama Grace reached out and placed a comforting hand on Rana's shoulder. "When the time is right, you'll know what to do. For now, focus on your studies and your future. Everything else will fall into place." Rana took Mama Grace's words to heart. She knew that she had to focus on the present and trust that the future would take care of itself. With Mama Grace's support, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Rana returned to her village, her heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. As she approached the hut she once called home, memories flooded back, both good and bad. Her mother was outside, tending to the scent leaves. She looked up, her eyes widening in shock as she saw Rana. "Rana," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Mama," Rana replied, her voice steady. "I've come home." Rana and Mama Immerse sat together, talking late into the night. Rana shared her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. Her mother listened, her heart aching for the pain her daughter had endured. "I'm so sorry, Rana," Mama Immerse said, her voice breaking. "I should have protected you." Rana took her mother's hand, squeezing it gently. "It's in the past, Mama. I've forgiven you and Papa. But it would be difficult to forget." Rana stayed in the village for a while, helping her mother with the farm and mending the broken pieces of their relationship. She realized that despite the pain, her mother's love was unwavering. One day, a young man named Chidi, Mama Grace's grandson, visited the village. He was wealthy, kind, and immediately took a liking to Rana. They spent time together, and Rana shared her dreams and aspirations with him. "You have a bright future, Rana," Chidi said one evening. "I can help you achieve your dreams." Rana was hesitant but eventually agreed. She moved to the city with Chidi, who helped her enroll in the university. Rana worked hard, excelling in her studies and later joining Chidi's company. They worked closely together, and their friendship blossomed into love. One evening, Chidi invited Rana to his home. "Rana, I have something to tell you," he said, his voice serious. "What is it, Chidi?" Rana asked, her heart pounding. "I love you, Rana. I want to spend the rest of my life with you," Chidi confessed. Tears filled Rana's eyes as she replied, "I love you too, Chidi." They got married in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and loved ones. Rana's heart was full of joy and gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment. Rana and Chidi returned to the village to visit her parents. Her father was old and frail, a shadow of his former self. Her mother was still tending to the scent leaves, her spirit unbroken. "Mama, Papa," Rana said, her voice steady. "I forgive you totally." Her parents were overcome with emotion, their eyes filled with tears of regret and sorrow. Rana hugged her mother tightly, the past finally laid to rest. She knew she had a bright future ahead, filled with love and opportunity. She had come full circle, from a life of struggle to one of success and happiness, proving that where you come from does not determine where you can go.